right now because we're in the meeting. So hopefully sometime soon. Oh. Oh, how are you doing? What time's Olivia go down there? Okay, so you're all right so far. Cassie's probably, well, they're all kind of like 7:30.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of council. Again, because this is a separate meeting, I again acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the Algonquin-speaking people, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt. And remind everybody who may not have been here before that we are being video streamed live and archived and recorded. So if anyone is to speak at the microphone, realize that, please. So we have an agenda, but what I'm going to propose is we move items number 21, 22, and 23 to the just before Mayor's remarks on the agenda. So
seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded to make that change. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. The first things we do is receive and approve the minutes of council meeting January 28th.
Move approval.
Please. Moved. Second. Discussion. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. A special council meeting January 29th. Again, minutes. Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? No one opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Now, let's move on to flip back to item number 21. This is in relation to the public hearing that we just held in relation to 4698, that bylaw. And we also will take them the bylaws one at a time. I had a couple of questions. I think there was a question that we captured, and then I have a couple of questions of staff on this, and I'll see if anyone else has questions in regards to this. And one came up indirectly. I think it was Mr. Bauer, and talked about the language of the design and the others. Of the buildings that will be built. How will that be controlled and decided? Ms. Jensen, are you able to tell us that? Please.
Certainly, Your Worship, through the subdivision process, it is standard procedure in the District of Oak Bay that as part of the subdivision, we require and the name absolutely escaped, covenant, thank you. Right. Covenant is registered to the title of the property that speaks specifically to the design. So in this particular case, we would be looking for the design and siting of any new homes on the lots to come forward to the design panel and forward to council for their approval. We would likely include some language in there as well that speaks to picking up characteristics of the existing heritage home.
Okay. That was the question that I captured. Was there anyone else who had any questions for staff? Councillor Zelka, and then Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you very much, Chair. Continuing in the same flavor relating to the covenant, as mentioned by our Acting Director of Building and Planning. Would this covenant also make reference to character and form, or is that included in design and siting, please?
Again, specific to that covenant, I think we would be looking for some additional language in that covenant respecting the existing heritage home and how those characteristics move forward through to the new builds.
And if I may, Chair, again relating to that, the Schedule A, as pointed out by a member of the public, said that the Schedule A subsection C, heritage character of the lands. How will that be preserved in this covenant, please?
Respecting the lands, the piece that we're designating is the home. So when we speak to the heritage character of the lands, it's really how are people going to be landscaping and what is the design of that home. So for example, what does fencing look like? How does the view into the property look like, rather than anything specific to protecting driveway?
Thank you. If I may, one more
Yes.
question. Thank you so much, Chair. I noticed in one of the correspondence there was a suggestion that it's a rather busy part of Beach Drive with Inglewood Terrace to the north and Hood Terrace, I think, to the south, with a few, and now with the additional houses going in, the suggestion was that traffic's pretty fast through that area. So one of the questions was, will there be something like a hidden intersection signs possibly going in, or will there be some consideration for a sidewalk or crosswalk? Those questions were sort of put out there in the correspondence. I just thought I would ask them of staff what may or may not be being considered at this time, please.
Through your worship, in our analysis of the proposal so far, there's been no specific requirement for those kinds of signs. However, it doesn't change. It's just as there is anywhere else in the district, as we see measures like that warranted, then we would make the changes required.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite, please, questions?
Thank you so much. Yeah, just two things that came up from the public input. Number one, just a clarification from staff, because I believe that this question was answered at the last council meeting that we had, and that's in regards to the Parkland Acquisition Reserve Fund. This is actually 2 lots being subdivided into 4, so there's no need for or no requirement to have money put into the Parkland Acquisition Trust. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. And then the other question I would have is around blasting. So it would seem to me that there'll be extensive blasting on this site. So can you speak to that, on what might be being put in place in regards to that for protection of the properties around it?
Currently, the Building and Planning Department has a process for any time there's going to be blasting taking place. That typically occurs if somebody is applying for a building permit of some kind. We would go through a process whereby the applicant is responsible for going and contacting all of their neighbors. Sometimes they involve their insurance companies who then may want to take pictures, for example. So it's really their side of things that's responsible for the blasting. What the district does specifically is we also send out notification to the surrounding neighborhood, letting them know of what's going to be going on.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murdoch next, please, and then Councillor Ney.
Thank you, and through your chair. So the only question I have remaining after those is just the question around, so there was a mention that there was a loss of 27 trees, but that's not how I read this report. But it was stated in the public hearing, so I thought I would address it. I see there's a clump of trees at the back of the property that is currently outside of the building envelopes as it's laid out. There's trees at the front in lot number, lot number 1, that may or may not, depending on the siting of the building. Can you give us some sense of how many trees are expected to be lost? But again, the siting of those lots would be subject to our council approval. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would be subject to council approval. Currently, there are a series of trees that are located at the very rear of the property, both on the north and the east side. The east side actually has a clump of smaller Gary oaks that would be protected. There are some larger trees on the lot where the existing heritage home will remain, and there's no plans to do anything with those. Where you may see a loss of some trees are down on lot 1, immediately adjacent to Beach Drive. The applicant has been working with our arborists, and at this point in time we'll likely lose some of those trees, but they're in poor health because there's so many invasives in there right now that they have not done well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ney, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, to Ms. Jensen. A point of clarification, please. I heard one of the speakers refer to a concern she had with how the variances on the application could set a precedent. And I'm wondering if within the context of the HRA you could explain how variances and precedents operate. Thank you.
So for the purposes of a 4-lot subdivision, each of the lots that's created, we would anticipate being able to hold a single-family home. And as a new lot, we would expect that each of those new homes would meet the requirements of the bylaw. So they would be able to meet the setbacks. They would be able to meet the height requirements. And rough building envelopes have already been, pardon me, set out to show that they could meet those requirements. So these variances are really very specific to the lot where the heritage home will be located, and that's really to reflect the existing house as it stands.
Thank you.
And just on that, if I could just intercede, just on that, in terms of the variances, there was some question about when they were discussed. Can you just take us back as to when they were requested initially?
Well, we've been looking at the variances since the application was made in terms of what would be required for the lot layout as it's proposed. So the variances are really intended to address the existing structure that's on the site. The other variances, there's one for the lot that's down along Beach Drive. So you've got 2 lots that are affected by variances. The height variances are really about representing the existing home on the lot that it's going to be located on. The other variances really have to do with lot width, and that comes back to how our definitions are set out in our zoning bylaw for what's considered a front lot line, side lot line, etc. And because some of these lots have a very irregular shape, the way they're calculated is resulting in them requiring variances.
Okay, and it was more kind of the timing of this. This isn't the first time they've been before council. They seem to be, maybe I misunderstood, but one of the speakers said this first time he saw it, but
yeah, and if I could point council to their agenda, there was a chart set out in our staff report of January 16th that's attached to the agenda. Similarly, September 18th is also on that, and they are also listed in the schedule attached to the Heritage Revitalization Agreement.
okay, so that's the time that they were first suggested.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Councillor Croft, please. Questions?
Yes, through you, Mayor. This would be a question for the Director of Engineering. I heard the public say something about stormwater management, and I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Through you, Chair, in terms of the proposal that's on the agenda tonight and stormwater, with any proposal for development, the district is involved in ensuring that these types of issues are addressed properly. I didn't see anything specific in terms of the agenda items tonight to offer any further information, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, then I think, oh, you have a question that comes out of that? Thank you very much. Or any new question, that's also fine. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. One more question did arise. I appreciate this with a question asking through to staff. Related to the parkland aspect, I understand the law doesn't allow us to ask for a parkland assessment aspect. However, with respect to community amenities, could you help me understand what we may or may not be allowed to ask in this area, or is the heritage aspect the thing that's representing the community amenities? If you could just help clarify for me and clarify what we could ask for in this area, please.
Well, under the legislation, the Heritage Revitalization Agreement is intended to do exactly that, protect the heritage, so that would be the amenity as part of this process.
Thank you.
Related, if I may. So the HRA is the replacement for any, say, in a non-heritage type development, we would be looking at community amenities, but for in the HRA, in anything that we were asking for in terms of the work with the developer would be within the HRA.
That's correct.
Is it possible to have both?
This, I think Mr. Jones is going to field this one.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'll take a stab at this. So currently, the district does not have a community amenity policy. We do not have a DCC bylaw. That is something that the council has directed us to look at and is currently on the work program. What that ends up looking like, we don't know. So at this time, the amenity would be the heritage designation. We've got no formal policy enabling the district to look for more or look for less. And that, again, that is something that will come forward to council, hopefully in the near future.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
The last piece, if I may. I appreciate the comments from Director of Corporate Services. My question was more having to do with the legislation. What does the legislation allow us? I'm under the impression the legislation allows us to create the policy that we then have to follow. Is that essentially what it is?
Mr. Jones?
Your Worship, yes. So at some point, there would be a formal policy that council would have around community amenities if council chose to approve that, and that would provide guidance to staff to work with people in the development community to try to achieve those policies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you. Now, questions? And pretty soon we're going to be asking for a motion for third reading, then we can have a debate. Thank you. Go ahead for the question,
Certainly.
please.
Just a final question. I just wanted to ask, I understand from the application that they're with RS4 zoning on the 2 lots that they could have up to 23,000 square feet allowed for 2 houses on the properties. And I'm just wondering, we have no idea what the proposed houses would look like or what size they would be, but given the restrictions of our zoning bylaw currently, can we estimate what the size of the additional 3 houses would be?
Ms. Jensen?
Sorry, through your words. Losing my voice, apologies. If you take a look at Schedule 1, the plan of subdivision that's attached to the Heritage Revitalization Agreement, you will see some general outlines on each of proposed lots 1, 3, and 4 that would give you an indication of the building envelope for each of those sites. Again, if you take the lot area for each of those proposed lots, the floor area ratio would still be set at 0.4.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so no further questions. We're at the stage now where earlier council had was holding this at second reading, and we then set the public hearing earlier this evening. And now, should council wish to proceed, the next step would be to propose or move third reading, and then adoption, which would
I'll move third reading.
Second.
moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thanks. I just want to just comment on a couple of things. I think that we had some great input from the public tonight. I think that a couple of the things that stood out to me were I think it was Mr. Prince who talked about this being a balancing act and how we have to respect the value, the heritage value of the lands. And I think he really spoke to the how you have to design the access in and out of this land. And I think that the way that it looks like this is going to be designed with the one access in and out is very conducive to being very respectful to the heritage value of these lands. And I think that Mr. Harrison spoke about losing so many houses, heritage houses in Vancouver. What I think the difference is here is that we're actually not losing this heritage house. We're maintaining this house, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to augment it by putting in some wonderful houses around it. It has been compared to Edgecliff. I would myself compare this subdivision and this heritage this HCA to Edgecliff. I agree that Edgecliff is a great example of what a good subdivision with a heritage house can look like. So I'm very happy to support this subdivision. I think it's great to see subdivisions like this come forward, and I look forward to more coming forward that will really take into account keeping the heritage building and just augmenting it by putting like buildings around it. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murdoch, and then Councillor Ney, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a couple of brief comments. First of all, I would say it's very nice to see this heritage house restored and to see it protected. And that is a big community amenity, and I think the idea of using these kind of houses as anchors for some infill is a very positive thing. I want to just take a couple of quick minutes to address some of the concerns, because there are some legitimate concerns. I think we have to sort of touch on them. First off, the question of rezoning this from an RS2 to RS4, and is that a reasonable thing to go through? And in my opinion, it is. It's in alignment with the subdivision to the west, and it's about the only way we can allow this kind of division for this heritage home. And I would just point out that the larger lots would result in bigger houses. So the question was, how big can the houses be? They're 0.4. They work out to about 4,000 to 4,500 square feet sort of per house on each of the lots. Still a large house, but certainly not in the 5 to 8 to 10,000 square foot that we see if they were just knocked down and subdivided. I think more attractive to the community overall. I think the concerns raised about the impact on neighbors, we have to consider that. But again, if we don't go down this path and just treat this as a bare land subdivision, or not even a subdivision, just treating it as two existing lots, there's no protection whatsoever for the houses on either side. They can be built as tall as they want, as within 5 feet of the property line. So this actually gives us a chance, and the applicant has done a fair job of trying to ameliorate the negative impacts on the neighbor. Certainly nothing's perfect, but I think they've done a fairly good job of this. And the concern raised around trees, and again, because we have the ability to consider these with the specifics of each individual application, I think we can do a fairly good job of protecting the green space on these lands. So for those reasons, and trying to address the concerns that are raised, I feel fairly comfortable that this is a positive development for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ney, please.
Well, in the interest of not being repetitive, the points that Councillor Murdoch has just made around the concerns that have been raised from the community were all fair enough, and I agree with the way that you've balanced that against the greater good here around the preservation of this property. My comments are that. I want to thank the developer for the work that you have done as a team, I guess, in working with the community. I've seen through the letters, and we've heard here tonight that you have worked hard to listen and to work with the community and revise the property in the interest of preserving this property. So thank you to that. That makes our job much easier. I want to thank the Heritage Commission for combing through this very carefully too, and supporting, of course, this application. It's very consistent with our effort with the OCP and our efforts to maintain and conserve these built heritage properties. And I for one, am really pleased to see more and more applications coming forward using this HRA tool that wasn't even known about even just a couple of terms. So I think this is a terrific way that we can realize our aspirations as articulated in our OCP. The final thing is this balancing of the common good, and I do appreciate how some of the neighbors are impacted. But as has already been said, I believe that the applicant has done their best to mitigate the impact. Yes, there will be impact, but our job here is to think about the greater good, and that is about the preservation of these properties. So I'm going to support this application.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Okay, Councillor Kirby, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'd like to just reiterate that, yes, we will see an increase in density, but I think that less so than if the properties remain zoned at RS2. We'll see less site coverage, which I think is a real bonus. And I appreciate the fact that the tree replacement bylaw is in place and that will be respected. The neighboring property at the Inglewood development is very similar. In fact, it looks like there's 5 houses on that neighboring development, and so this is in keeping with the rest of with the neighboring properties, and it preserves a piece of our heritage, which I think everybody appreciates, and with unanimous support from the Heritage Commission, I think that speaks to the value of retaining this property. I also think that this is an excellent step forward as far as infill and respecting our new OCP and encouraging people to do the same, to develop within this, within context, and to make sure that we do it respectfully, but we can't stop and have zero change. We have to keep moving forward, and we are living in a time when there is a housing crisis, and there are much more serious housing issues faced by many people downtown. So I think this is a wonderful compromise.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay. Seeing no other speakers, just to add a few words to what's already been said, all of the points I agree with. I want to thank the speakers who've come forward. Not always easy to come forward in these kind of forums. And I appreciate there are some concerns. I think many of them have been ameliorated, and I appreciate that. And I want to thank the Heritage Commission also for looking into this. They're experts. We appoint them knowing that they're going to dig deep and drill deep into these, and they did that, and that gives me a level of comfort that they were unanimous in suggesting we approve this. For the concern that I heard about, what about the new houses, what they're going to look like, we heard from Ms. Jensen that there will be design controls there. There will be more community input on that. So again, that's something that will ensure that overall the project is a good one. And really it is about design, and the right design and the sympathetic design. And then I just want to make a comment on the value, and I think it's been mentioned before, the value of the HRA, Heritage Revitalization Agreements. They're wonderful tools, and we've seen here how good they are in terms of flexibility. The developer wanting to ensure that the light, for instance, didn't shine in yon window, right? So they put a whole bunch of trees there. They took out, to increase privacy, they took out the parking. And this HRA agreement allows for that kind of discussion, that open discussion. And I think one or two speakers talked about the openness of that communication. So it is a valuable tool. It's one I think that's being made greater use of, certainly in our region, to protect older buildings. And I was particularly struck by the the heritage expert who came forward and talked about the singular importance of this house to our community. And now it is protected in perpetuity. Whereas I think in other communities, they may just lay waste to them and build 2 or 3 or 4 new houses. So this is a great step forward. So thank you very much for all involved. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, and the motion is carried. That's third reading. And now the next step is adoption, or often called final reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. That was adoption, and all the best, and continue to talk with our staff and to talk
We
with
need
the
to move
neighbors.
third reading 4697.
Okay.
Second.
This is to do with the St. Patrick's. Oh, sorry, no, that's right. This is the other part of that. 4697. Moved and seconded. We've already had our discussion with respect to this. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Motion carries. Adoption.
Move final
please.
adoption.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we move on to St. Patrick's. Now let's just see if there's any questions any of the councillors had. Seeing no
Move
questions.
third reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded, third reading. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move
Motion
adoption.
carries.
Seconded.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, we go back to the top of our agenda, excuse me, and that is the mayor's remarks. I have a number. We received a nice letter from a resident who I'd seen here earlier, but she doesn't appear to be here anymore. Resident of Roslyn, Ms. Green, had a particular issue in the back lane behind Roslyn and wasn't able to get out. And what she commented on is the great work of Ms. Mara Jones, who fielded the initial concerns and involved building and planning. And eventually Public Works kicked in and the problem was solved diligently, mitigating any damage. And Ms. Green says, kudos to all the staff involved. Many thanks for the response. So I add our kudos to her kudos. So that's double kudos, Ms. Jones. Thank you. The next is a reminder from the this is the Oak Bay Tourism. They have an ongoing contest where people can submit a story and win a prize. And the deadline is March 20th. Go online and put your stories in, oakbaytourism.com. Thank you. And Oak Bay Heritage. Speaking of heritage, the 20th of February, Tuesday, here in Oak Bay Municipal Hall from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we have a celebration of Heritage Week with history and heritage, treasures from the archives, behind the scene tours of the archives, and heritage walks led by John Adams, and everyone is welcome. Refreshments served, hosted by Oak Bay Heritage and Oak Bay Archives. We're grateful for that. And a reminder that February is Black History Month. I went to the launch. There'll be more activities, so go online, www.bcblackhistory.ca for all the information. Lots of activities there. Next, there is a congratulation to go to Oak Bay High School. They were recently certified as LEED as a result of the gold certification as a result of the great environmental steps. Congratulations to Oak Bay High School. For the information of our community, University of Victoria is embarking on a strategic planning, and they have right now a framework, draft strategic frameworks available on their website, and anyone interested in that should go online and look at the opportunities to engage University of Victoria. And last but not least, I attended the World Religions Conference held at University of Victoria yesterday. Yes. And I received this wonderful plaque in recognition of service to the community and support for making the 11th World Religions Conference Victoria a success. So I'm grateful to World Religions Conference, and they certainly are a great forum for sharing multi-faith discussions, understanding, and love. So thank you very much to them for inviting me, and thanks for the lovely plaque. Next is the public participation period, 20 minutes, starting at 7:35. People have 3 minutes to come forward, state their name, their community, write down their name and their community, please. Start by telling us what the topic is. When I say welcome to that, I start a 3-minute clock. Here it is. And when it starts, the radar, I think this is called, these tones, please wrap up. And be assured now I know how to turn it off, which apparently I didn't. Well, it's a new operating system. Good evening.
Hi, Curtis Hobson, Oak Bay.
New topic?
The heritage revitalization agreements
Welcome.
that we just talked about. Okay. Concerns are about the balancing act that has been quoted a few times here tonight. Based on the information that we received, that there's a possibility each of the new houses could be 4,500 square feet on 3 lots. I would like to suggest that we're not getting a fair balance between the developer and the municipality. There's a huge increase in value of the property. The houses that will be built will sell for many millions of dollars. And the applicant referred to the house as a community resource. And while I'm all in favor of preserving heritage, I don't see how it's a resource for the community. Perhaps it'll be open for tours, maybe. I just don't really see a great balancing act between the profits for the developer and the costs for the community, or the benefits for the community, and as well as the costs, because after all, we are servicing 3 new houses and the associated costs with that. Regarding the parks contribution, I think we might be dealing with an interpretation of the Local Government Act, not a direct reading of the Local Government Act. I believe it's the best practices would indicate that the whole area of the, being subdivided be considered, and we're basically getting 4 lots on 2, so that's not 3 or fewer, or that. So I think that should be revisited and looked at with a fine-tooth comb by our staff, just to ensure that their actuality, the reality of the law and the legal interpretation is the community is not losing out, basically. And again, the development cost charges and the community amenity contributions. I do believe other municipalities include those in their heritage revitalization agreements. And I think, if we could expedite those as a municipality, it might be wise to take advantage of the current economic situation, because we know economies fluctuate. And 2 years' time, there might not be as much of an interest in heritage revitalization agreements because they might not be as lucrative for the developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson. Anybody else wish to address us?
Thank you.
Name,
Esther-
community, topic.
Esther Patterson, Woodlawn Crescent. I wish to address Council on the item number 9, I believe it is, the Citizen Budget Simulator.
Welcome.
Thank you. Read the memo, very interesting, thank you. And I know a little bit about these simulators, not a lot, but there are associations for everything, and the government finance officers have an association that really promotes these tools. But I understand that there is quite a variance in how much we pay for them, and I imagine it's like all technology. The bells and whistles come directly related to the price tag. So, but there were some questions that didn't come out in this, and perhaps they will when it's discussed by council. But in my mind, I wasn't clear as to whether this is going to be simulated reality or simulated non-reality. In, in other words, if it's going to be populated with actual information from Oak Bay budgets, or it's going to be theoretical information that we just get to play with and see what happens. So that wasn't clear to me.
I'm just going to ask Ms. Carter to capture that and address it when we get to item 9.
Great.
Thank you.
The second was, it's not really clear in the memo as to what information will be conveyed to the public and what input the public will be giving back and how that information will get used in the decision-making process. I know that, again, this association, the Government Finance Officers Association, they actually give out awards to municipalities for their budgeting, and I was really quite astounded to see that Central Saanich was on the list in 2017. They got this Distinguished Budget Presentation Award out of all of the lists, one of 28 in Canada, and they're close to us, so that was nice to see. They do have, Central Saanich is using quite an extensive online budget package now, and so is this going to take us closer to that model? Is it a first step? You know, really, what's going to be the future benefit of this? So those were my questions. Hopefully they'll come out during the discussion, but we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patterson. And I think that can capture that second question too. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Wickens Joblin. I live at 767 Oliver, and my topic is Airbnbs in
Welcome,
our
sir.
community. I got some notes here. My wife and I wrote a letter to Mayor and Council on December the 4th, and today I hand-delivered it to the office here, and today we discovered that it couldn't be found. So I provided an extra copy of it today,
Thank you.
and it was given to Bylaw enforcement. Where do I leave here? My wife and I have lived in Oak Bay since October 2013. We moved here because it's quiet. We like quiet, and she needs quiet because she's got some serious health issues. The letter also identified an illegal Airbnb in our neighborhood. And basically, we want the Airbnb to stop operating.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you not to deal with a specific incident or specific complaint. This is not the forum to do that.
Okay.
And we may be transgressing
Okay.
some things. So,
Well,
so general policy, bylaws, and that.
okay.
Thank you.
Just for your information, I searched the internet today for Airbnbs in Oak Bay, and I got 306 hits. It's a big problem. Our letter also identified the current enforcement policy, and I don't think it's very effective, and I don't think it works because it requires residents to provide written complaints before the bylaw enforcement officer will take any action. So that's a bit of an archaic thing in my mind. So I think the council needs to get on this because it's a big problem and it's going to get bigger. What else we got here? the Airbnbs blatantly and clearly advertise on the internet. So to expect the residents of the community to file a formal written complaint regarding something that you yourself has said is illegal, and it's been in the news and in the newspapers. Why do you need formal complaints when it's clearly advertised on the internet? It doesn't make sense to me. But I think this is going to be an election issue in the fall, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And just regarding the number of Airbnbs, in our brief meeting at UBCM with Airbnb officials, we certainly were left with the impression that many who identify themselves online as Oak Bay or near Oak Bay, they want to be thought of as Oak Bay, but not necessarily physically in Oak Bay. Just a footnote to that. Okay. Anyone else wish to address us? All right. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the speakers. Appreciate your input. We're going to go on now to our communication section. And the first one is very much in keeping with what we've been seeing on television. It's the games, not quite the Olympic Games, but these are the Canadian Francophone Games. And myself and our liaison to the Parks and Recreation and Culture Commission, Councillor Braithwaite, met with two officials who maybe are both here. Okay, I see them at the back, Marie-Pierre Lavoie and Mr. Adian.
And Councillor Kirby as well.
And Councillor Kirby was there as sorry, I forgot, she was our interpreter, if we needed one, but we all managed to get through it. So I don't know who's going to make the presentation. Ms. Lavoie, would you come forward and do that? And Ms. Rodez is here too. Yep. Salut, as they say. That's right. All right.
Yeah, I don't know how to make it bigger.
Should be this, yeah. Oh,
It goes the other way.
Sorry,
to make that big.
Probably one that says start slideshow or something.
Start slideshow, yes.
There we go.
Okay, I can.
Welcome, Ms. Lavoie.
Merci.
Bienvenue, as they say.
Your Worship, councillors, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for having us today. It's a pleasure to come and present our event to you. I'll start by giving a little bit of background. Back in 2016, a group of Francophiles and Francophones from the Victoria region got together and decided to put a bid in to host the 2020 Canadian Francophone Games here in the region. In February 2017, after a evaluation commission came over in January to evaluate our bid and to visit the facilities we were proposing for the games, we were awarded the games. So it's been almost a year. It'll be at the end of February that we were awarded the games. So here is I'm going to do, sorry. This is going to be easier. Okay. So I will do the presentation, and here we go. So the games are the largest gathering of Canadian French-speaking youth. So there's hundreds of young people who participate and exercise their talents in 3 sectors: arts, leadership, and sports. The event showcased cultural pride, self-confidence, and leadership abilities all in a friendly competition, whether it's arts competition, sports, or leadership. The vision for the game is, and what is the most important thing to take in from the vision, is to remember that it is by and for the youths. And to testify to that, I have with me 2 young people who were participants this summer in Moncton in 2017. And one of them is also a board member for the organizing committee, and the other one was a participant in theater. For mission, we have to promote new friendship, building and strengthening the French-Canadian youth cultural identity, which is a struggle every day in a minority setting. Offer a cultural experience in the host community. In this case, the games will mostly be hosted in Oak Bay. And we put an emphasis, again, on arts, leadership, and sport. For values and guiding principle, the event is one that is in French only, and it has an emphasis on buy-in for the youth, like I just said. It's an event that is sustainable, that is inclusive, and that strives for excellence. Those are the 3 sectors of competition, and there are also social night activities and demo disciplines. So in arts, we have improv, visual arts, and music. In leadership, we have event management, public speaking, kind of like a TED Talk, and media. And in media, they have to do a report for TV and do a report for radio. In sports, we have basketball 3-on-3, volleyball, track and field, badminton, ultimate frisbee. At every edition of the games, we have to suggest 2 demonstration activities, one for art and one for sport. And in our case, the demonstration art will be culinary art, and the demonstration sport will be sailing, because we're on the West Coast. Then there's a big collective activity that is also called the big game. And for that, it takes place during a whole day. It's usually at the beginning of the games. And it's an event where we mix all of the delegations. So we have delegations coming from all provinces and all territories. We mix all the participants together. And so they get to forge friendships. They get to meet new people. They get to hear about how it is to live in a minority setting in another province or territory, or even in the majority, because Quebec is also included in the games. So we have 5 evenings that are dedicated for the games, because they take place over 5 days. We have 2 ceremonies, one opening and closing. The big game takes place during the day. We have an arts gala, a Francophone night, and a youth night. So for the Francophone night, it would be something like we have a Francophone artist invited and they would do a show. Or if the Buskers Festival goes on, it'll be the Francophone part of the Buskers Festival that we would take the participants. And one youth night where it's only for the youth. So they, in previous games, the youths have said that they really wanted to have some time to explore the region where they are participating, because otherwise everything is structured. So we're thinking about probably organizing something like a city chase, or I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's something like a city chase so that they can explore. Yes. And then they can see what we have to offer here. The games in number, like I said, 1 language, French. 5 days of competition, more than 1,000 competitors, aged from 13 to 18 years old, over 700 volunteers, 10 provinces, 3 territories, 3 sectors, arts, leadership, sport, 13 official disciplines, more than 90 competitions, and more than 400 medals awarded. So they are big games. Like you said, Your Worship, not the Olympic Games, but close, we hope. Venues, and this is where your great district will be showcased. Opening and closing, we are thinking about Willows Park. Competitions will mostly be held at Oak Bay High School. Track and field, because of the track, we have to go to UVic. Sailing will be at Canadian Forces Sailing Association in Esquimalt, because we already have ties with them. And the Arts Gala will be held at the Royal Theatre. We know it's going to be gorgeous, but we just don't want to take any chances, so we decided to go indoors for that one. Team accommodation will be at Oak Bay High School and Willows Elementary School. So most of the competitions, like I said, will take place at Oak Bay High, and also at your rec center. The badminton competitions would be held in the tennis bubble. I've already made contacts with some people where we can get some portable badminton courts, so it will be there. And the history of the games in 2020, it will be the 8th edition of the games. As you can see, New Brunswick hosted twice. This year, they have hosted. The games have never been in BC, which I think is one of the reasons why we got them. And we're very excited. Why is supporting the games? Represent the French language and its associated cultures and culture in British Columbia. In the Victoria region alone, we have about 7,000 people who identify as Francophone or Francophile. So it's a big part of the population. Participated in the largest Francophone event dedicated exclusively to Francophone youth. Promote a festive, young, and popular event of national scope that is aimed for a public passionate about French-Canadian culture and contributes to the growth of the next generation, and of course, increase the visibility of the francophonie in BC. And there is my presentation.
Merci bien.
Now, if I may.
Est-ce qu'il y a des questions ici?
Merci.
Oh, mais oui. Okay, that ends the lesson for me. Go ahead.
We are here to do the presentation, of course, but we would kindly ask that the Oak Bay Council support, in principle, the Canadian Francophone Games with the resolution that has been provided to you earlier, and which also includes a clause for us to enter into discussion with the district staff about the details of the Oak Bay administrative, in-kind, and or financial support. So that's one thing. And finally, we also kindly request that the Estimates Committee considers our grant application made on January 30th in the amount of $10,000 and incorporate it in the annual budget.
Good.
So this is what we're here for.
Thank you very much. Now, one of the things that I heard, because that, I don't mind telling you, this 10,000 is a large number for a small community,
Yes.
but there's also some talk about in-kind and how we value that, and I'm wondering if we shouldn't, first of all, have discussions with staff so we know what is in kind and what's cash over time. And we do have a few weeks or a few years to decide this. So that's something we may want to consider. Maybe a better, more articulate ask in terms of more detailed, not articulate, more detailed ask. You know, this field, and maybe a couple of $1,000 we would provide you, so that lessens the cash equivalent. So anyway, that's something I think the staff can work out. And I know Mr. Herman is here. He's our director of all parks and recreation things, including culture. So
and he's been very helpful so
yes,
far.
I know. I understand that. So, and we hope that he'll be speaking French by the end of all these negotiations. Eh bien, Monsieur Herman. Okay. So let's see if there's any questions.
Yes.
And hello to the last year's participants. Welcome here. And I know we've had an ongoing relationship with Quebec. When I was an early councillor, we had an exchange with Quebec City suburb. And one of the things that impressed the delegation from Sillery was the name of the little town. It's now doesn't exist anymore. It's been fusioned. But one of the things that they really were impressed with was the number of schools that we have French immersion, and how important French immersion is to our community. There's Willows, there's the high school, and just outside Oak Bay, there's Margaret Jenkins. So there certainly is a high interest and dedication to the French language here in Oak Bay. So, all right. So let's have some Councillor Braithwaite and then Councillor Ney. For questions, please.
Thanks so much, Chair, and through you. Thank you it was nice to sit through this presentation again. I was excited the first time I heard it. I'm even more excited now, and really looking forward to being able to showcase our fair municipality for these games. A couple of things since we last met. I know that you have put in a grant, or would like to put in a grant request of $10,000 from us, and as the mayor said, we can perhaps look at some in-kind for that, because that's a large amount for our municipality. But I know that Councillor Croft and I were at the Oak Bay Tourism meeting the other day, and they now actually have a funding application that could possibly fall into this, because you have just basically talked to us about the number of participants and their traveling, the staff who travel with them, who will all stay at the schools.
Right.
What you didn't touch on was that there could be as many as 500 parents traveling.
Yes,
so
correct.
those 500 parents need to go somewhere, and one would hope that they're going to stay at either the guest house or at the Oak Bay Beach Hotel, which they're very excited. When I told them about this, they were very excited to have a conversation with you.
Oh, okay.
I'll email you that information. But that brought me and Councillor Croft to thinking about the Oak Bay tourism funding application that they have, because you are bringing tourism dollars into Oak Bay. It could be that there might be a possibility of getting some funding through that. So we'll direct you towards that, I think, as well. And then I think that we're going to have such a large amount of media focus on our municipality as well, that it'll be great to see what we can do as a municipality to help these games to come to fruition in Oak Bay. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I'll email you that
Okay,
information.
thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ney, please.
Very much through you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very exciting. I really love the format of this project too, bringing the arts, the leadership, and the sports all together, and with young people, and the whole Francophone thing is terrific. A very exciting project. Mine's a bit of a practical question, really, around the budget that you've laid out nicely here. The draft budget lists the 300,000 revenue coming from the 4 core municipalities.
Right.
What's the status of those other asks from the other municipalities?
We're just in the process of asking.
Okay, I just was curious. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's so delightful to meet other parents and associates of École Victor Brodeur, where both of my children attend, in French, 100%. And I'm very excited at the presentation that you gave, and very pleased that the proposal, the letter of support that we provided in 2016 helped with the approval coming forward to this point. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I think it would only be a feather in Oak Bay's hat for this to move forward. Looking forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you, thank you for the presentation. Quick question for staff on this one. The motions that are laid out here seem pretty straightforward, support in principle and putting $10,000 to estimates. It's not approving the money at this point. It's essentially putting it as part of our consideration process. So is that correct? That is the status of this recommendation?
Your Worship, that is correct. And one of the things that the presenter talked about was the idea of having a conversation more with staff. And I know that's something that staff are quite keen to do, to further refine what that ask at the end of the day actually is. Is there a cash contribution, or is this in lieu? And so that's an important conversation that we need to have, and that we would plan to have and bring forward at estimates.
And you, sir, through you, Chair, you would need this motion essentially to start that conversation. That's essentially where we're at.
That's the intent of the motion.
Then I'll move the motion that's laid out here.
Second. It's really a two-part motion. We're supporting in principle, and then that we're asking you to essentially speak with our staff. So that's the part one and part two of those, okay? Oui, Councillor Kirby?
Merci.
Est-ce que vous avez des questions?
Non, j'ai pas de questions parce qu'on a eu la présentation avant, mais merci beaucoup pour d'avoir revenu. I'm thankful that you've come again, and appreciate hearing about this excellent event. I just want to express my support for the motion. As a youth, I traveled with the Rotary Club to Wisconsin for a week and to Belgium for a year. And it's there that I learned my French, and I've tried to maintain it ever since. It's very difficult, although we live in a community of 17% Francophile and Francophone and bilingual residents. So I think this is an ideal event to take place here in Oak Bay. And so, yeah, I just want to express my support for both those things. I think this is an excellent opportunity for youth, and it covers all the bases. It's not exclusive, it's inclusive, and it truly does will showcase BC and the coast to our friends from Quebec and across the country who may not otherwise have an opportunity to travel. And I think that is so important to ensuring that we remain this great country, Canada. We wouldn't, if you don't have the opportunity to travel, you never really understand the other cultures or other concerns. And we do have many issues that divide us, but this is an opportunity to show just how united we can be, and I think this is an awesome event, so I'm very excited to support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Zelka, please. And then we'll go over to Councillor Braithwaite after that. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. I apologize. There's always more things that come into my brain afterwards. I would hope that in the discussions with staff and possibly a tie-in with the Tourism Committee, that the fact that Oak Bay is a member in good standing, I understand, of the Francophone and Francophile Cities Network, as mentioned in the Feb 22, 2016 minutes, that might possibly tie in maybe with some sort of a consideration piece to help with the second item, which I want to say, which is my wife, who was born in a place called Île Maurice en français, but in English is Mauritius, the land of the dodo bird, for anyone who's wondering where the heck is Mauritius, a little island in the Indian Ocean that speaks French. So my wife, who was born to Chinese parents, speaks French, and here she is in Oak Bay wondering, why is there no culture here? Well, I'm going to have to go home, I hope, if all goes well, tonight to say, we're going to get some wonderful culture coming to Oak Bay. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite. Next,
Just
please.
wondering if you've decided, if you know what the dates are yet, because I know when we met originally you didn't know the actual dates. Do you know the actual dates now?
Correct. So we met with School District 61, and now the tentative dates would be July 12th to 18th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're all going to mark our e-calendars. Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch, please.
So just for clarification, the motion that was laid out, you mentioned the support and principal and the direct staff to communicate, but there's also a third part to that we add $10,000. I just want to make sure that's clear in the motion to refer that to estimates.
Okay, so it just looked like a separate motion. That's why on our documents, and had 1 and 2 and then separate motion. But if you wish to have part of that put forward, then yeah, we can. I think there's a consensus that can be part 3.
Your Worship, there could be one resolution that includes 1, 2 in that
Yes,
additional
yep.
piece.
So we just added as number 3. Thank you very much. Okay, so we now have a motion before us with 3 paragraphs. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. And bonne chance. And
Merci
we
beaucoup.
look forward to supporting you.
Merci
Thank
énormément.
À la prochaine, I think they say. I hope. All right, so the next item is a Ride Don't Hide funding request, Canadian Mental Health Association. Ms. de Montmorency, is she here? I didn't see her. There's a request here for the ride, which this year will take place. It's starting in Oak Bay on June 24th, at least that's the proposal now. And they're asking that the police marshalling costs be essentially granted to them, and just remind us what that is, how much that is. Just pulling up my iPad number there.
I think Mr. Jones has a comment to make.
Your Worship, the value is $470, and that for the benefit of the audience is something that Council did approve last year. I would just point out that the event is changing a little bit this year, where they're are hoping to use Windsor Park to a greater extent. So there will be some further consultation required with the Parks and Recreation Department and perhaps the Commission. But that's just for your information. So really the request today is to allow or basically waive those costs as Council did in last year.
Okay. So, sorry, did I hear a motion or? The motion is
to approve the police and marshalling costs for the Ride Don't Hide event on June 24th for $470.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Okay, let's have a discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Just a point of clarification. Since they're changing the events, do we not need to have it run through commission first before we would approve this, or no?
Your worship, we could make it subject to. So we would, I think there's some details that the commission staff may need to work out with the organizers. I'm pretty certain the event is going to go, just a matter of what it looks like. So I think you're in an okay position to approve that funding request.
So approve the funding in consideration to that it is approved through commission, that the event is approved through commission.
Your worship, if the event wasn't approved, we wouldn't incur the costs. So we anticipate, we're pretty certain the event will go ahead. Exactly the details, I think, is something, as you mentioned, is important to work out, because there has been an idea to change things fairly significantly this year.
Okay. Yeah, because it says related to the event. So if there's no event, there's no costs. Yep, I think that's fair. Councillor Kirby, then Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to express my support for the event, and I also appreciate the change of venue. It's closer to home, so it makes it a little easier to participate. Saves me the ride downtown, and then the ride, and then the ride back. But I think it also is an excellent opportunity for a community event and raise awareness in Oak Bay of mental health issues, and get people out celebrating together. And it sounds like the perfect venue. The other venue was on a parking lot, which wasn't entirely conducive to a gathering or feeling of real celebration. So I think Windsor Park, as always, is a beautiful venue and will really be an excellent spot for this event.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch and Councillor Nave, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm trying to get my head around the covering of police marshalling costs. We have quite a few events that have police marshalling costs attached to them, most of them for charities. But right now we don't have a policy on this at all, right? We approved this one as sort of a standalone waiving last year, and we're back here again this year. So I guess I don't have an issue with this motion. I think we sort of somewhat established a bit of a policy by accident last year. But, should we maybe be considering these as part of our grant process or some other process that makes it a bit more clear? Because if we're looking at 10 or 15 events that are all this, then that's probably half of our grant funding altogether if we sort of start making this a default. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, Your Worship, so we've actually approved this for 3 years in a row. And I do think the idea of policy of some type or another to deal with this type of thing might be a good idea. So that's something we can take away and talk to the police about.
I think that would be a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. So any further discussion? Oh, yes, Councillor Nave, please, on the motion.
Well, actually,
$470.
okay. Actually, that part of what I was going to ask has been, for the most part, answered by staff there. But I do want to say that I agree. This is terrific. This is coming into our community. I remember there was one year council actually put a team together, so that might be something we could. Councillor Croft led that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. So maybe that's something we could revisit. It's a terrific event and brings up a lot of awareness around this real important issue. So, there you go. We got a volunteer.
Well, Councillor Croft was biking at the time, but just not here. All right. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm assuming, and maybe staff could confirm, that with this contribution to the cause, that the district would receive some sort of recognition or thank you in there somewhere, I presume?
Your Worship, yes, that would.
Yep. Okay. No further discussion? Councillor Braithwaite, further discussion?
I think that if you're not here, you can actually go ride electronically or whatever you want to say, because I'm actually hiking the long-range traverse then, and I think I was hiking last time we put it 2 years ago. I was hiking the East Coast Trail, so I'll have to ride online with you.
Which is a lot less strenuous, I understand.
Except I will be hiking the long-range traverse.
Going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We now move to the Capital Regional District Transportation Services Establishment Bylaw, which was before us at an earlier meeting. This is a live issue now. We don't have to raise it from the table. There are two live motions. One was the initial motion to support and be given to the CRD Establishment Bylaw, and staff provide correspondence to that effect. And then there was an amendment with 3 parts, that the motion be amended by adding, and we've got that in front of us, the cost recovery issue, list of services, and evidence available for incremental increase. One of the things that we really haven't discussed this amendment fully because we had some outstanding questions. We now have those questions answered, at least in part, by a letter February the 2nd, which is part of our agenda, from Ms. Bay from the CRD, and she answers them in the same order that they were put. One of the things that I suggested is that we discuss it all together but vote on them separately, but that needs consensus of all of us to do that. So let's have a discussion on the amendments. That's where we're at this point. Then if there is a full consensus, we will separate them to 1, 2, and 3. If not, we'll vote on them as a block. And then depending on what happens here, we'll go on to the main motion. All righty? So, anyone wish to start us off? Councillor Kirby and then Councillor Murdoch, please. Or no, hang on. You should go first because you made the amendment. And I'm not sure you fully spoke to it last time, but there was a lot of questions. So Councillor Murdoch, I'm going to give you the floor because it was your amendment, and then we'll go to Councillor Kirby.
Sure. Actually, I was going to make a suggestion in terms of process, which is they're very separate, all 3 of these. So I think it would be worthwhile for us to address 1, 2, and then 3, and then we can go back and have
and debate them separately?
Debate them separately. I think
that okay with everybody? But there also has to be a consensus that we also vote on them separately, and that needs unanimous consensus. So unanimous consensus that we vote on them separately.
That'd be my
a point of order, I guess. A point of order. Would you simply asking for division of the question? Wouldn't that solve the problem if we just say division of the question? Robert's Rules of Order.
No, and I checked that with the guru of the Robert's Rules and our procedural bylaw today. We need unanimous consent to separate them. Other bodies, you don't need them, but here we do. So that's just a procedural issue. Ms. Jones, brought to my attention.
In case it's of value to you, Your Worship, staff in the region have had the opportunity to have parliamentary review sessions with Lisa Zorn, who's a parliamentarian in the area. Division of the question is very interesting, but isn't applicable when it comes to separating amendment motions. So.
All right. So is there anyone who objects to us considering them separately? Okay, you said a question or an objection?
Yeah, it's an objection, but it's also a clarification. We're talking about the original motion and the amendment.
No.
And we're going to deal with them separately, or we're going to deal them with one? I'm sorry, it's not clear to me what the question is.
Okay, the question is, there is an amendment that has 3 parts. We're only dealing with the amendment, and the question is, do we deal with the amendment separately, the 1, then the 2, then the 3? And then we'll go back to the main motion depending on what happens there. So it's just, the question is just, do we separate the amending motion into 3 parts or not?
Again, I'm not in favor of doing that. I would like to do the amending motion as a debate on the whole motion.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's that. So, because it doesn't need unanimous consent. So now we have a general debate. I'm going to ask Councillor Murdoch to go first, and then Councillor Kirby, please.
Okay. There's not an awful lot to talk to. I think we had a pretty robust discussion last time. If I had to, I can talk to each individual portion of it. I feel quite strongly that the first portion is very important. I ran some rough numbers. We're looking at a difference between the assessed value as proposed and the population base, and it makes a difference of about 150% more that we would pay as a municipality over what we would pay under the proposed system. So it's a significant larger amount, and really transportation is directly related to population, not to assessed value. More people, more cars, more buses, more bikes. Seems logical to me, so I think that's a very important one. The other 2, I think it may be just easier to speak to if there's concerns or issues raised, and I can come back to those.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kirby, please. And then Councillor Braithwaite.
I can't,
okay,
I
sorry.
can't support the motion, the amendment to the motion, because I think it will tear apart the motion or the intention of our motion, which is to support a transportation service establishment at the CRD. I think that we need this regionally. We need a regional vision. We also need the opportunity to apply for grants as a region, and that, you know, this taking apart our support for the motion or support for the establishment of the service piecemeal with these three issues, which I understand are concerns, but they don't. If we tear apart our support, but with these three things, we don't send a strong message that we want to see a transportation service established at the CRD. I don't see that this is a large expense at this point. They have the intention is to amalgamate a couple of teams that already exist at the CRD and not expand dramatically. It gives them an opportunity to seek other funding and plan more effectively. And I think that's an excellent goal, and we should all support it. So I can't support the amendment.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Nave, please.
Well, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the presentation last time because I had the flu, but I've gone through the materials pretty carefully here to try to understand what this was about. So to the first point, I'm pleased you brought the point up, Councillor Murdoch, around the way the costs are allocated around this. It's a point that's concerned me for some time. As you will recall, we had that reviewed with the Arts Commission. It didn't actually show a significant difference. You're saying it's 150% more cost. I'd prefer to hear that from staff. I'm not questioning your ability to do numbers. Actually, you seem to be pretty good at that. But I would like some verification of that. But all that said, I think that is a worthy issue to take up with the CRD, the way costs are being allocated with Oak Bay because of the changing property taxes. So, but I don't think this is the hill to die on. And I think if we take this up here, it's going to undermine what I think is a real important initiative that provides a regional lens on transportation services that, as I understand, have been stymied. We've got a list of 9 different reports that aren't moving forward, and there's ad hoc kind of piecemeal development around transportation services. And overall, I think this is offering us a strategic way forward to deal with some of the demographic changes, the congestion, traffic issues, and the general changing landscape of our region. And transportation is key and needs to be addressed in a coordinated, strategic manner, in my view. Can I speak to the other 2 issues, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, you can speak to them all as one,
Yeah,
because
okay.
we've not separated the motion.
Okay. I've tried to understand exactly what the issue was with the web-based and multimedia platforms. And the way it's been described by the CRD I personally don't take issue with those platforms. I think what they're able to, I wouldn't delete that from the list of services that would be addressed in here. And the reason is this, that if it's a data gathering initiative in part, web-based multimedia platforms, it seems to me, offer a way not only to inform and educate our population, but would offer a two-way communication medium. And it's critical to get the user experience fed into any potential services. So I like that as a specific service operation identified in that list. I would also be asking what are other ways to gather information and to report out. That would be something, but I don't see any reason to take it out, certainly. And I don't, unless it's cost, but I think it's a real useful tool that you have to use with transportation services these days. That's my view. And on the third amendment, regarding the request to have evidence for the incremental increase in grants. And again, I appreciate the sentiment of this because what you're asking for, it seems to me, is accountability. And I think accountability is reasonable to ask. We're putting out a chunk of change, and we want to know, we don't want to just bloat the bureaucracy with no return. So, and I think the CRD has responded to this by providing a indicator. They said that they would include one of their evaluation indicators as how much grant money comes in. So I'm satisfied that we can see how effective and efficient this body is able to be in the servicing of better transportation initiatives in the region. So on all three of these amendments that have been proposed, I wouldn't support them. I would go and I would support the transportation service bylaw, but I don't see right now, and I'm open to hearing other views and discussion, but I don't support these amendments as they stand.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I'm kind of stuck on the very first one, the cost recovery. I think it's really important that we are not asked to give money based on our land values. I think it should be on population. I also am very concerned with the original ask that came for this bylaw, which was $10 million. They got a lot of feedback from the municipalities that was too much, so then they dropped it down to 1.5 million with the ability to go up to 2.5 without having to do anything else, and then the ability to come back to us and on 2/3 agreement up that to whatever amount they want. That concerns me because, again, when we look at the two letters that were included in our package, one from Colwood, one from Machosen, Councillor Nay, you pointed out that there was 9 studies. Yes, there have been 9 studies that are basically, as Colwood has said, that already exist and they're still relevant today. And so why are those 9 studies just sitting there not being utilized either? And when 2 municipalities who are mostly affected by this service establishment bylaw are writing against this bylaw, that concerns me as well. So I can't, to group these together as 3, as one amendment, I can't support that amendment. So I'll have to be voting against the amendment based on that. So unless someone can convince me otherwise, but that's my thoughts right now.
Okay. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm sad to see that this wasn't divided, but maybe, who knows, maybe if it fails, we could bring forward part of this motion as another amendment. While I can support some aspects of this amendment, I can't support all of it. In general, when we get to the final motion, I guess I'll continue my discussions then, but I'll be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone has had their say. Councillor Murdoch, you want to have another go? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep this brief. I certainly appreciate the comments that have been made around the table here. I think it should be separated because I think they are quite distinct. So it's unfortunate we can't do that. I think this is not tearing up support. The motion says we support it. I think it's a fairly clear message. I think we have to just look at it from the context of are the details of the establishment, and it is an establishment bylaw. These don't get changed once they're set. And that's primarily my concern with the costing. And just what that looks like, and I don't have the exact numbers. I'm using the 10-member GVPL thing as a proxy for the 14 or 13-member CRD, but it's probably actually slightly less bad than it is in the CRD. But you know, what we're looking at right now, if we did this under population, we'd be at about $81,000. We're currently paying $103,000. If we do it under population, under assessed value, it goes to $125,000. So it immediately goes up by about a little over $20,000, just with no changes at all. Our costs as a municipality go up. But the ability to change goes from that low of $81,000 if we do it right now to $208,000. We're looking at, you know, almost $130,000, about 0.5% every year that we're going to be paying as a municipality for exactly the same service, for no particular reason other than the fact that it seems easiest for them to just do it that way and tax directly. But it doesn't seem to me that it's the right interest of Oak Bay. So I think it's actually a very critical one. And if it goes up to 10 million, then we're looking at that, you know, times 5 or times 4. So it's a significant amount of money. You know, looking at an extra $500,000 a year if it goes up to $10 million that Oak Bay is paying over what we would be paying under a population model. So I think that's important. I think because the comment was made, it wasn't expand pricing dramatically, but I do consider that quite dramatic. I actually really appreciated Councillor Nay's point about this, like the idea of feedback and so forth in the second part. I think that's a really valid point. And you weren't here for it, but just at a very summary basis, my primary concern is whenever you have engineering staff that their job is to do data collection and provide engineering advice, having them also having the role of promotion, which is the primary issue I had here, it basically means that they're then advocating a political portion of it as opposed to the engineering. So that separation, to my mind, I think is fairly important, because all too easily things slip into the politicians telling the engineers what they should be designing, and the engineers having to support that model as opposed to saying, here's the options, here's the recommendations, and then having that decision made at the political level. But I think it's a very good point that feedback loop and so forth should form part of that. So it's not easy. It's just that wording caught my eye. And I think that it was one other point brought up here. I guess the last point made around the traffic studies piece of this, I think it's very indicative, because I have a problem with spending money on not doing stuff. So we have a CRD establishment bylaw here. Because they can't actually do any capital projects, they actually have to study. That's all they can do. So we have a series of 9 studies laid out by Colwood's letter, right? The Victoria Regional Transit Future Plan, the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan, the CRD Regional Transportation Plan, Victoria Region Bus Lane Project, Victoria Region, et cetera, et cetera. They're all studies, and all this body can do is more studies. We've had 9 in the last 7 years, and we have another $1.5 million being spent on more studies. If we spent the $1.5 million actually building things, we probably actually get some address of some of these issues. So I think there's a very real concern about spending money on these things and spending more and more money on things that don't come back to it. So I think the principle of this is good. I just think that this is the time for us to give feedback as to how we make sure that it actually does something and doesn't just keep studying things. So the feedback, the more data that we have to make wise transportation decisions, all of that is excellent. I'm fully supportable, which is why I support the establishment, but I do think that we have to take care at this point. It's our one shot to make any changes.
I just have a question for staff, if they can remember. So there was reference made, I think, by Councillor Braithwaite to an earlier $10 million establishment bylaw. Does anyone recall what our position as a municipality was on that? All right. Nobody can recall.
There certainly was an earlier bylaw that had the 10 million, and to be honest, I cannot remember if that's the one council gave approval to or not at an earlier stage. But there was an original.
Right.
The CRD has since changed the bylaw to now say 1.5 million with a maximum requisition of 2.5 million.
Yeah, I just don't recall that we put any conditions on our support in principle on that one. But we had a support in principle on that one too, as I can recall, but I just wanted to check. All right. Councillor Nay, did you
through your chair to staff?
Go?
Yeah, just one more question to staff. Regarding allocations based on population and land value as currently done with costing for the district. I understand with the Local Government Act, you can have one or the other. Currently, we have a formula that Oak Bay gets costed using, in part, our land value, rather than just fully allocations based on population. So my question is, I wonder if staff could help us understand, or help me understand, how exactly would a district go about looking for an amendment to the costing formula if they're displeased with it, with the CRD?
Your Worship, unfortunately, I have a bit of a background in this, and I can say that it is changing funding formulas is an incredibly difficult thing in regional districts. At the CRD, it is based on basically assessed value, so the value of the property and structures, and that's how all of the costs, not all, the vast majority of the costs are shared. Things in other regional districts do vary, so there are other ways you can fund activities. I would say, though, once an activity is established, it is, funding philosophy or parameters are established for regional districts. It's very difficult to change. I would suggest it'd be very, very difficult to change funding formulas at the CRD.
One more follow-up, Mr. Mayor. And in an instance where something started to look very disproportionate or unfair to one district compared to others, what's the recourse?
Your Worship, at this, I mean, it depends on, I guess, your philosophy around what's fair. Is it fair to base things on population, or is it fair to base things on assessed value? In British Columbia, certainly, and in most places in Canada, taxes are based on value, and property tax, the value of properties. Is that right or wrong? That's the way it is in most places. There are some examples in other regional districts where costs of various programs are shared differently, and those are largely based on agreements. I would say, though, that once those agreements are in place, changing them is very, very difficult.
Thank you.
And through your worship, it depends also on the service that's provided. So in most cases, it is based on assessment, but in some cases, it is population.
Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. A question through you, Chair, to our sole and only director of the CRD. I just was wondering whether...
through me and to me? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you do wear two hats. Thank you very much.
So it's like a boomerang question.
In a sense. So the question has to do with respect to this service, quote, doing something. I presume through the applying for, and then I presume also handing out grants back down to the local level, this coordination body would be able to actually achieve something through the local governments. Is that true?
That's my understanding, and it really is the importance of coordination, that one of the granting agencies don't want a fractured system. They want a single transportation strategy. Now, smaller communities or even larger communities can key into that, in other words, but it has to be some kind of central coordinated, so we're not all doing different things that may have conflicting results. And we've seen initiatives by Langford on the transportation front that kind of just sprang out because they had a good idea. And when you look at the funding agencies, they don't want those individual good ideas. They want a regional good idea because transportation is a regional issue. It's certainly in my view, although it's further to take the bus to Colwood and Langford, I admit, but buses can be as critical here as in the outlying areas. So I think it is important to all of us. So, but that goes a little further than your question. That's by a comment. But anyways, that's my answer to that.
Thank you, Chair. Please remember to thank the director of our CRD director. Thank you so much.
Yep, when I see him, I'll pass that on.
Wonderful. I do appreciate the conversation around value and value for money. This is, God forbid we ever had to deal with amalgamations, all these very same questions would come out where we're talking about the actual value of a service based on an assessed value. And thank God right now we have separate mill rates based on that standardized BC assessment. So we can actually adjust, as long as we maintain our local governments, we can adjust our taxes. But if we ever amalgamated, we lose that. So on the other hand, with a service like this, effectively we are locking in a bit of a mill rate, shall we say. So I definitely understand what Councillor Murdoch is referring to here with respect to the value potentially being out of escalating beyond what our taxpayers can handle. And yet, I do also feel good, to some extent, that with the governance model in the CRD, at least we have one vote to try and keep the budget under control.
Thank you. I just want to point out one in respect of the one item in that CRD letter with respect to the issue of, if I just get in front of me, the condition that there needs to be evidence to show, I had them all here before, I apologize for that, that there's value for money. And there is a line in the Ms. Bay's letter that says, the CRD has in the past successfully attracted matching grants to fund programs. And here's the important part. Funding partners have indicated that they would not have funded such initiatives had they been proposed by individual municipalities. So it does show the value of coordination and working together. And I think first and foremost, because of the importance of transportation to us financially, environmentally, and certainly socially, we should go forward in a united way. And I think Oak Bay should support this. The conditions have a way of undermining that support. So, although with respect to the grants, I think that the evidence is already there that this is the better way to go. So I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment as a whole? Opposed? Councillor Croft, Councillor Kirby, Zelka, nay, and myself are opposed. That motion is defeated. We're now on the main motion, which essentially says, and I'm just going to hit different buttons on here on my iPad. We're going back in front of screens, and that is that support be given to the proposed CRD Transportation Establishment Bylaw. That's now on the floor as originally proposed. Thank you. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to move an amendment to the motion, which is essentially the wording of number 1. Essentially, after the words 2018, if the following conditions are met, that the cost recovery portion of the bylaw stipulate that the costs of the services shall be allocated by population. Period.
Seconded.
Now, I look to staff to give me some advice on this, because traditionally Robert's rules say that once you've made a decision, can we go back on it in this way? Ms. Jones, you were nodding?
Your Worship, I think that it's fair to say that the question of whether there was 3 or 1 conditions would give a substantive difference enough that it would be permitted to have it on the floor.
Okay, so I rule that it's in order and it's on the floor. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Chair. I don't have very much more to add beyond what was already said.
Okay.
If there's everything I said before, I repeat. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Kirby, please.
Again, I can't support the amending motion because I think it takes away from our support for the transportation service. It makes it conditional, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think we need to be in support of the establishment of transportation service regionally. We need to see this happen in order to attract grants, as we did with the Active and Safe Routes to School program that wouldn't have existed had the CRD not applied for and received successfully 2 grants, one from the Real Estate Association and one from the Victoria Foundation. Those are 2 examples of where this definitely applies, and I think adding conditions takes away from our support. These are formulas that can be negotiated at another time and another level, because it applies to everything. This doesn't just apply to the transportation service. It's undermining the entire, our participation in the CRD. It says to the public that we don't support transportation working regionally, and it would undermine our support of the CRD and working regionally with our partners in order to apply something that I think will benefit us all. I also think that if we question the CRD's integrity by questioning how they are operating this service for us, by saying that it's going to cost us too much money, it's like saying that the CRD is so inefficient as a body that we can't support participating. I just think we're making a mountain out of a molehill, and as Councillor Nee said earlier, that this is not the hill to die on. Yes, I understand that our costs are going up due to changing housing costs and assessments, and there is a dramatic change. But this is not the time to call that into question. I think that this service is too important to the region and to the health of our communities to have that battle now, and we need to show that we are strong participants in the region. We understand the regional, or the reason we have a regional body such as the CRD, and I can't add a condition to that support.
Councillor Murdoch.
Just really briefly, I mean, many of those points are fine. I think the proof that they get better grants is a really weak one to my mind. They've gotten like $40,000 in grants, looking at $1.5 million a year, $2.5 million a year. The support, just to go back a little bit, for the $10 million original piece, to be clear, that was a capital body within the CRD. They had the ability to get matching capital grants. Those are the kind of projects they actually get grants for. They don't have that ability here. They cannot apply for capital grants. They can apply for grants for studies. That's what they can do because they're a studying body. So this is very different. And I think it is a very significant amount of money, because we're looking at upwards, probably over $100,000 difference if it goes to $2.5 million. That $100,000, we spend $400,000 a year on our roads. We keep trying to add more money to that. We keep not being able to do it. So we're keep at this thing. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure deficit that we have to get to. And we keep saying, well, it's okay, it doesn't matter. We'll just not worry about the $100,000. We'll give it to the CRD. This is exactly the time that we have to do it. Changing it after the fact is impossible. It's never going to change after this fact. I think this is the time that we put this condition on it, that we say, okay, this will be established. And to be very, very clear, the current money that's being spent, the $1.5 million, is coming out of CRD parks. That is not assessed on assessment. It's a mix of 50% assessment and 50% population. They could have shifted that to population, or they could have shifted it to assessment. They chose assessment. Just that bumps up our costs by a pretty significant amount. But going the other way would drop our costs. And frankly, transportation is based entirely on population. If there's ever a place to do this, I'm not saying we should always go this way, but if there's ever a place to do it, this is it. Transportation based directly on population, this is the time to make that stand. I don't think it undermines the support of the regional system at all. I think it's directly just addresses the fact that this is the most fair and reasonable way to do it, and it's our one chance of doing it.
All right, Councillor Zelka again, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. I wouldn't want my amendment mischaracterized as lack of support for what the CRT is trying to do with respect to this shared service. I very much support a shared service model. I very much support the aspects of the intent of the main motion and want to see it to succeed. I do note, specifically with respect to the CRD bylaw, if I look at item number 4 of the actual CRD bylaw, which is the last item on our package, you'll notice on page 2, under item 4, cost recovery. How the costs will actually be recovered, there are 4 ways. It will not necessarily be based on population. It could be either property tax imposed sorry, not based on assessment. The first item says it could be property tax values imposed, or B, fees and charges imposed under Section 397 of the Local Government Act, or it could be revenues raised by other means authorized by the Local Government Act or some other act, or item 4 in terms of cost recovery. It could be revenues received by way of agreement, enterprise, gift, grant, or the catch-all otherwise. So for us to put a little request or condition on our approval of this, saying, of those 4 cost recovery methods, avoid A, because that focuses simply on assessment. If you could maybe focus over to B, C, or D, I think that's what, at least is what I was imagining, what we're trying to do with this. Get off the assessment model onto something that has, that with respect to this service, is a little fairer. That's really what I was hoping for.
Are we ready for the question? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Ney, please.
Mr. I'd like to ask you a question because you're sitting on the board there and following the development here. So I have 2 questions. First one is, how did this, was the issue of costing a formula ever discussed, or?
It wasn't the main focus of the discussion. The main focus of the discussion is, do we or do we not want a unifying transportation authority? And as you can see here, it's now at 3rd reading stage. And so if we were to pass this, it would require the CRD to step back from 3rd reading, go and then amend it, and then move back forward if there is agreement on the amendment. Because that's where things are at the CRD.
So there never has been discussion about a question about the apportionment.
My recollection, and I'll have to go back to the actual underlying reports, is this was a recommendation by staff to do it this way. And it was in keeping with, as Mr. Warren Jones has said, is in keeping with what many of the other services are too. So. Yes, Councillor. Oh,
I have one more question, sorry. This is to Councillor Murdoch. Did I understand you to say, I may have misheard this, Councillor Murdoch, that you're saying that this body wouldn't be able to apply for grants? I may have misunderstood what you said. Did you say that?
That was the explanation by the presenter. They do not have any capital pieces. This is a management body only. They provide reports, and Mayor Johnson can confirm that, but that was what they said. So because they don't have any capital, they can't apply for matching capital grants. So it's a planning body and an advisory body, but not and they have no authority over transit, roads, or anything else. They just have advisory.
But they're attracting it. Like as a body, they would be able to attract these funds, is what I'm understanding.
Well, they hope to, but the grants would not be capital grants to do things. They'd be grants for studying.
Yeah.
Things.
Okay. I understand that. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Kirby, please.
2 things. One that I think Councillor Murdoch has pointed out a couple of times now, that this is only for planning and reports, but that the CRD would only be able to do planning and reports. But what capital grants have we ever applied for that didn't come with planning and reports to support them? We need the planning and the reports in order to apply for a grant. You have to have all that stuff ready and on shelf-ready projects. We won't be able to even come up with that planning piece or those reports with the staff that we have here at the district. I mean, I think that's asking asking our staff to be able to provide those reports and planning elements is impossible. We will never be able to achieve that given the workload that they already experience. So this is an essential piece in order for us to apply for capital grant funding. If we don't have the planning and reports to support those applications, we'll never be able to apply. And that's, for an example, is how we were able to get the Bowker Creek rehabilitated at the high school, is because the CRD did the planning and reports and applied for the grant. Our staff applied for it, but honestly were very, there had some very limited involvement in that application process. And we were successful at receiving a very large grant of almost $1 million in order to rehabilitate that section of the creek. Without the CRD's support, we would never have achieved that. And this is exactly the kind of thing that they're offering to do for us. In addition, it's suggested that this amendment would be a suggestion to the CRD to change the funding model. This is not a suggestion. If we amend our motion and make our support of the motion conditional to this amendment, it means we don't actually, if the board as a whole doesn't change the funding model, that says we don't support it. And I don't want our vote to be dependent on that. I mean, I would love to see it change, but I don't think that it's worth us rescinding our support for the service as a whole and that opportunity to have transportation funds come our way. We can't continue, and it's not sustainable, to upgrade or maintain our roads and our infrastructure and our transportation network under the current model. This is the best way forward as a region, and I think we need to work together to achieve those grants. So, and achieve regional planning on multimodal transportation initiatives. So that's why I can't support this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Nay, and then I think we're going to have the vote.
Okay. I have another question. I feel like we've been backed into a corner here. It's either this or that. So it's all or nothing here. And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Mayor, another question as director of the CRD. If you could explain, please, for my information before we make this decision. I just want to understand the process, what would happen if we went one way or the other. Because I do fully support this bylaw and what it's aiming to do. I think it's needed. I've given my reasons previously. But I do sympathize with the funding formula concern. I don't know that we need to be it seems a bit unfair. And so my question to you, Mr. Mayor, is could you explain if this motion was approved and we said it was on condition about a revision of the funding formula, what exactly would happen? Does that mean we kibosh the whole bylaw and it goes away? Like, what would happen under that? Or would it go back? They're undergoing third reading. Would it go back to how far back does it go before it could come back again? And would it come back again?
Okay, so this is the way I understand the process. And it really ties in with what Councillor Kirby has said, it's conditional. Our support is conditional on this happening. If it doesn't happen, we do not support it. So what would happen is when it goes back, if this condition passes, it would go back to CRD. I would make a motion to rescind the third reading and go back and amend and make then a motion to amend it pursuant to our condition. And if that amendment is turned down, then I would have to vote against the Transportation Authority bylaw at the CRD. However, and this perhaps is a better way to do it, is if council is of the view that I should attempt to make this change, and in the face of a failure to make that change, continue to support it, I think that's that kind of more open-ended way would achieve both. It would achieve our attempt to change the funding formula, and in the face of that, we would still continue to support. But if this goes ahead, then I would not feel that I could support the bylaw if they don't meet our condition. I think that's the big difference. But I'm certainly, after hearing this discussion, if this is turned down, it would be my intention to raise this point at CRD and to have it debated and see if there's support around the table to change that. And I have not canvassed any of my colleagues to see whether or not there is. But it's certainly something I would do in advance, just to find out what the views are. So, but you can understand there's going to be a shifting. There's a cost, and it's a matter of if it shifts one way, it's helpful for one community. If it shifts another way, it's not helpful, right? So what one community gains, someone else loses. So support may be difficult, but I'm certainly prepared to put that forward by way of motion and argue it vociferously. But if this condition goes through, then if we don't succeed at that, then we pull our support. I mean, I personally would prefer not to go down that road because I think it is important. But certainly I'll make a college try, even if this one is turned down. All right. Did you want to finish that, or?
I could just finish.
Yep.
I know Councillor Murdoch has something to say. The idea that you spoke to in the earlier part of your comments there, that if we made a motion to that you go to the board to amend the cost recovery portion, and if it was turned down, we also make a motion to give you the support to support the bylaw in the event that it was turned down. I would be okay with that, because in that instance, we've made an effort to get the support from the board to reconsider the cost allocations. And if they don't go along with it, there's nothing we can do. If you're not going to get majority rule there, then I would still support, even though it's going to cost us more, even though we can't address the cost allocation issue that we're concerned about, I would still then go forward and approve the bylaw. And I'd like to find, I don't know how to do that here right now, but that's what I would like to find a way to do.
And I think the way to do it, if this is turned down, if there's a consensus on council that I go to the CRD and ask to have that change made, then I will make those efforts. But at the end of the day, if the efforts aren't successful, given that we support in principle, the first part of the motion, and support be given, but it not be a condition of our continuing support. I think that's the difference.
I mean, my sense,
I know it's a
Mr.
little bit
Mayor,
nuanced.
It is, but we are a part of a regional board, and we make our efforts to address our concerns, and that's what it is. But we also have to go along with the team. Like, we have to be team players here. So you get your way sometimes, and you don't other times. But I would like to be vocal about how, Councillor Murdoch has rightly brought up a concern here around costing, and it's a concern to all of us. So I would like to work with the council to see if they're interested in going forward that.
Well, we have an amendment on the floor, so we got to deal with that amendment. And if it fails, then we can have a discussion as to what I suggested, that I be given direction to attempt to change that. But if the attempt should be unsuccessful, we can the motion of support will stand. Okay. Councilor Murdoch?
Yeah, just a quick question. What happens if, I'm not clear on this particular vote, if it goes to third reading and or final adoption and Oak Bay votes against it, what happens to this? Does it require 100% buy-in for it to pass?
No, it really depends what process that the CRD decides. So this is the first attempt to get 100% buy-in from all of the municipalities for a transportation authority. That seems pretty evident that it's not going to happen. We've already heard from Colwood and Langford. So 100% unanimity is not on the cards. And so that's one way to get us to establish a service. There is a fallback position, and that is there can be a region-wide they used to call it, I'm not sure what they call it now, Mr. Jones, a counter petition. So if there is 2/3 majority on, at the board to go by counter petition, and counter petition doesn't, and counter petition is a certain percentage of the population signs a petition forcing a referendum, then in the absence of that, the service bylaw will be instituted with that 2/3 majority. Is it 66% or 60%? It's one or the other. It's
It's 2/3.
It's 2/3. Okay, that's what I thought. And I can tell you at this point, 2/3 is going to be very close around that table. But that's the alternative. But it has to be decided by the regional board to go to counter petition. And if during the counter petition there's enough signatures, then it would go to a region-wide referendum on the issue.
So as I understand it, it's not going to pass unanimously in any case.
Yes, that's correct.
So we
I
have,
mean, yeah.
we have a leverage at this point to possibly force it with a bit of a hard stand. I'm not sure what your success expectation is with the college try, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty close to a round number, and it's not going to be not a big round number. I think that at this point, given that it's not going to pass with unanimous in the first try anyhow, having a very strong hand from council to go to is actually very advantageous in having this discussion. And having it, well, we'll support it no matter what, but we'd sure like to have it if you had it more. Doesn't seem to me a very practical way of going about it. So given that vote we know that it's not going to be unanimous, I'd be much more comfortable with this going through. If it comes back to us for the counter petition role, then we have a chance to, of course, address it again. At this point, we have a chance to actually take it on. So I think it's very important, after hearing all that it's actually more important that we pass this as it's worded. And then if it fails at the CRD table, then it comes back to us again as a counter petition process.
It would not come back to us as a counter petition process.
So
That would be decided at the board.
Okay.
And only if there's 2/3 majority.
But you would have
So
a
there's no consultation with the municipalities. Essentially, it's a CRD going right to the people to saying, there's 2/3 of us who want it. Do you, as a community, 13 municipalities, do you also want it? And if their counter petition doesn't succeed, it will go in automatically.
Fair enough. So we're at the same position here then.
Yeah, but if the problem as I see it, this is a precondition. So if I can't get them to change their funding model, I cannot support the counter petition. And the counter petition 2/3 is very close. It's very close. And if the 2/3 doesn't fly, then the whole I'd have to say that the transportation authority is now dead. Yep. So that's why it's important that I have the ability to support a counter petition approach. And
I guess I would just argue the other side of that you have that authority in any case, but you have the strongest possible chance of getting us a preferred funding model. They're shifting it to load much more on us now than it is currently, and we have a chance to actually switch that back to the same as it is, or to have a more approved model. And the stronger hand we give to you as our negotiator at that table, the better off we are. But let's have the call on this one.
If there's a precondition, I don't think out of good conscience I could support the counter petition, because that doesn't meet our precondition. I think that's only fair to council. Okay, Councillor Zelka.
Almost ready for the vote, but I do have one more question to ask. Through you to possibly a staff, or maybe some staff that might have had some regional governmental experience, possibly, or possibly yourself as our director. I do take heart noting that in the letter from the CRD, it says that the cost apportionment based on population is compliant with the Act. So it is legal. It is something we can ask for. And I do just want to confirm, it appears to be that in the actual bylaw itself, under item 4, I probably, maybe I'm not reading it properly, but it looks like item 4 wouldn't change at all, because item 4 basically provides 4 possible different ways that could include almost any way to fund this particular thing. However, item 5 appears to have the hard-coded, essentially a property value tax rate built into it, so item 5 essentially nails it down and makes it essentially a 4A choice, as opposed to a 4B, C, or D. So the effect of the amendment put forward would be to try and modify item 5B, the nailing down of the mill rate.
Okay. I think we've argued it all out. The motion is that that the cost, the condition of our support is that the cost recovery portion of the bylaw stipulate that the cost of the service shall be allocated by population. That is a condition of our support. Okay.
Question, I don't, to you, Mr. Mayor, to staff. If we voted for this, could we then do another motion that would say if that was, no, I know the answer to my question. Never mind. It's
No,
okay.
if it's a precondition, it's a precondition. You can't say you can ignore the precondition. So if you wanted to go down that way, it would be vote against the amendment, but then give me directions to seek a change. All right. I'm ready for the vote.
One last question, if I may, possibly to staff. Would we need to change the word shall to something softer if we wanted to make it the good college try thing? Is it the word shall that's the problem?
I don't think it's a
wanted to ask-
technical term, by the way.
Well, because from a legal perspective, doesn't shall means must, or it means?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the other legal term which doesn't mean must, means you have the option?
Or that there be no condition. Yeah. So the motion would probably be along that
May.
that the representative seek an amendment to the bylaw, the current bylaw of the CRD, to comply with this. But if that fails, then the support kicks in, and we would still support.
Can I move that we call the question?
Well, I don't know if Councillor Zelka's finished. Are you finished?
I was just wondering whether replacing it with the word may as opposed to shall would give you the leeway to have it the good college try.
It wouldn't be a condition then. Okay. There's an amendment that there shall be allocated as a condition of our support. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Councillor Kirby, Councillor Ney, myself, and Councillor Croft opposed. That fails. So we have the support. Now, do you wish to give me direction to seek and make best efforts to change the allocation formula?
I'm going to move that.
Do we need a motion, or what would?
So sorry to interrupt, Your Worship. We do have a motion on the floor now. We
That's
dealt
right.
with the amendment. The original motion is now on the floor.
Okay. And probably the best way to do it is to pass that, and then to make either have a consensus that you give me that direction, or have a motion. I'm not sure what staff thinks is stronger, but I'm certainly I'm prepared to take a direction that there's a consensus and try what I can to make that happen. So, any further discussion on the main motion? On the main motion, thank you.
I think it's important for us to have a couple of votes against the motion as it includes the portion of the as written, it approves the bylaw as written, which is to support things. So I think it's important for us to go with a bit of a split vote, so you can actually say with a straight face that this is a very contentious issue for us, and we can give you the strongest possible if we're not going to actually have an actual firm stance to take. So I won't support this. I hope a couple other people won't as well, so we can have a bit of a split on this. Thank you.
Okay, I think I understand what you said, but I'm going to call a question. No other hands on the main motion, and that is the support. That support be given to the proposed motion, and that staff provide correspondence. Okay. Now, we could have a separate motion that says, as part of that correspondence, you want to call the question? Okay. All in favor? opposed. Councillor Murdoch and Braithwaite opposed. I'm sorry. Thank you. So now, I think the letter should include a request that consideration be given to, or do you just want me to bring that to the board table?
Your worship, I think from staff's perspective, if we're going to include that in the letter, it would be preferable to have a resolution of council.
Yes,
saying
and I
that,
think it should be in the letter, so it signals early that what our preference is. So the motion might want to be, and that letter indicate that Oak Bay Council prefers to have the cost portion of the bylaw be allocated on the basis of population.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's an important issue, though, so I know it takes time to deal with important issues. This is the report of the number 8, report of the acting chief administrator with respect to our council priorities. And as we had requested previously, we requested a little more information where some of the, just so we get a better feel for where these priorities are at. And what we'll be looking for is a motion to receive. But in the meantime, let's first see if there's any questions on the priorities, please. See no questions. A motion to receive, please.
Proceed.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
The staff in the report did ask if we wanted to comment on the extra information they give, and I found it very helpful, just for your information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was that's implicit. Thank you very much. Now it's explicit. All in favor of receiving the report? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. Online public engagement tool, the citizen budget report that was referred to by Ms. Patterson, and she had a couple of questions. Could you just give us an overview, and it would be helpful just to talk a little bit about what other communities you've contacted and what their experience using this tool, and then get around to answer Ms. Patterson's. And you may be answering that, I think, as you go along, about inputting real figures or make-believe figures or theoretical figures. Ms. Carter, doing double duty tonight, acting CIO and a finance person. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So staff were made aware of this online budget simulator tool. There are a number of options available out there. However, we received a demonstration on this particular tool, and it actually looked pretty slick. There's a number of municipalities in the region and throughout the province that are using this tool, so we reached out to a number of them, including the City of Victoria, to find out what their experience has been with it. Every municipality that we contacted provided positive feedback, and essentially it uses actual information, so it would be based on probably 2017 budget data and assessment values, and it allows the public to go in and select services based on their particular assessed value and what their taxes would be. So basically, what I'm getting for my tax dollars and whether I would spend more in a particular area over another area, and it allows the public to provide that feedback through the online tool. And in the end, a report is prepared through the Citizen Budget organization for Mayor and Council's consideration when deliberating budgets.
Okay. Now, so the first part of your question, I can't remember both of your questions, Ms. Patterson, was, is it make-believe figures or theoretical? And it sounds like it's pretty clear. It's real figures. 2017 budget figures, that's right. So the second part of your question, I wrote it down somewhere, and then I put it on the floor. So you... Oh, central Saanich, yes. Was this used in central Saanich? Did you contact them, Ms. Carter?
I don't believe it was used in Central Saanich. They would have used a similar tool, but not the same one.
And this is a tool that I thought I read in your report, it's a non-profit organization, so it's not kind of based by, kind of an industry kind of way to promote themselves?
That's correct. The intent is more to promote public engagement and opportunities to enhance that within municipalities.
Thank you very much. Now, let's see if there's any questions, and we can see there the proposed motion.
I'm not sure if that was the second question that Ms. Patterson had.
Okay.
My second question was just if you could give an example of what types of things you would be looking to convey to the public.
Well, yeah, the education value. Yep. Okay. So what would be in it to, that the information the public would get?
Sure. As I understand it, the information that would be provided to the public is current budget allocations for infrastructure, for roads, for police services, fire services, those types of things. And it would give the public the opportunity to say, okay, what would happen if I wanted to add a little bit more to fire, for example, or add more to infrastructure? How would that impact my taxes? What if we reduced a little bit in another area? And sort of a scenario-based model.
Now, let's see if council has any questions for Ms. Carter. And then, just trying to see here. And you're just asking us to receive this because it doesn't require a decision to direct you to do this because you have enough money and authority within the budget as it is, in an operational budget, correct?
That's correct. It's not a capital project, so to speak, so we don't have to ask for early approval.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So, questions? I thought I saw Councillor Ney, then Croft, then Kirby, and then Councillor Zelk, in that order, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to staff. Thank you for doing this. This is a terrific initiative and really adds to the overall initiative around increasing engagement and transparency in the community. So the question simply is that I can see how the tool will be educative for our community, our citizens who use this. Is there also a way that it can feed information back to help inform decision-making with council?
Yes, through your worship, this would be a trial basis this year to determine exactly how it works. I have been informed that there will be a report provided by this organization after the window of time that the survey information comes in from the public. And so that information would be presented to council to help inform the budget discussions.
Through you, Mayor. I note that you'll be able to control IP addresses, but will you be able to know where these people are coming from? So are they within our municipality or outside of the municipality?
Yes, through your worship, when we provide the initial, work with this organization, providing them initial information, one of the things that they will likely ask us for are the postal codes. And so when somebody goes to enter their information online, they would be asked to put in their postal code, which would then identify whether they are in Oak Bay or not. And in order to address those folks who may want to participate more than once, that's where the IP addresses come in, and only one response from that particular IP address will be counted.
Thank you very much. Councillor, go ahead. You have another one?
So from experience, though, that some of our postal codes do go across boundaries, both into Saanich and Victoria. So I would think that we would need somewhat more control on that to make sure that they were just Oak Bay residents.
Yes, and as I understand it, there are different mechanisms for doing that, so I'll certainly work with the organization to make sure we track that properly.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm so pleased to see this come to council, and so I thank staff for bringing this to us. I really appreciate it. When I heard about this last fall, I was very excited about the opportunity to engage our community a little bit better on the budget, and in particular, I had asked staff if through the asset management planning process, if we could come back with a 1%, say we increase our budget by 1% or 2% or 3% taxes, how does that impact how would that impact our budget, and how, what kind of services could we provide, and to show the public just how much an increase in taxes would benefit them in our long-range planning. And so I'm wondering if there's a sort of a reverse tool, like you said you can increase certain services and then see the result. Can you just increase taxes by 5%, or in the case of the Girl Guides group last week that were here, increase it by 175%? And would that show? How would that show an impact on our services? Is there a reverse tool as well?
Through your worship, I think what this tool will do will provide information from the public on where they feel that we should consider spending more rather than less, or less rather than more, vice versa. So all of those projects kind of work hand in hand together, be it asset management and the long-term financial planning. They all work in parallel with one another.
Thank you. And just to follow up, Chair, it's also a third of the cost that I was told it was going to cost. I was told it was about $10,000 for a community our size. So I'm thrilled to see it's within our budget and super accessible to a community of our size, and it's just a fantastic effort. So really, really appreciate you following up on that. Thanks.
Councillor Jalko.
Thank you so much, Chair. I apologize. I didn't actually see what the actual cost was. I understand Open North is a nonprofit open source producing company. How much would the cost for this pilot be, please?
Through your worship, the base product alone would be, for 1 year, is $2,250, and there are options for customization. 3 options available at $500 each, and it would appear that Oak Bay would likely follow up on 2 of those options.
Thank you so much. That sounds incredibly reasonable. I imagine most of those costs are probably hosting costs of anything, but not necessarily cost of development. I do have some familiarity with this company, Open North. With the other hat that I wear at the Ministry of Transportation, they were the instigators of the Open 511 project. Not just Drive BC, but also if you go to Google Maps and you get to see what's going on, all that data that's on Google Maps was received through the Open 511 project that was organized under the covers, at least the Canadian data, by Open North. So they're a very interesting organization. And I see that they receive a number of grants from the federal government. And they're in the middle right now, Open North, of creating a do-it-yourself open data pilot project for municipal governments, which, who knows, maybe in the task force you may want to look at that. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm very looking forward to seeing this in action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murdoch, please.
Okay, I take this one that we're just going to try it and we'll see how it goes, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So I guess the only real question I had for it, because it's not entirely clear, obviously there's a bunch of costs that we have control over, and there's also fees and other things. So we're really looking at the tax portion of the budget, is that correct? Or are we looking at the overall costs within our structure?
There are different options available through this organization. One would be just strictly a budget education tool. The tax module seems to be the most popular among municipalities and provides the most value for the dollar in terms of being both an education tool and something that we can report back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion to receive.
Move to receive.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? No one opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ms. Carter. I think this will be a very valuable tool for us and also for people to learn about how we apportion our money. And just to be fair to the Girl Guides, they had their motion was to increase the taxes 150% to begin with, and they never did pass the extra 25%. We ran out of time. But they seemed pretty keen on doing that. They were a wonderful, wonderful group. All right. Tender award. This is a pressure reducing station, and it's not a new radio station, right, Mr. Haran? No. Tell us about it, and we see your recommendation here as part of the Henderson Road Water Main Extension Redundancy Program.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the report and the decision we're seeking tonight is an important step in that project. We sought tenders for the supply, fabrication, and delivery of a pressure-reducing station. There were 2 qualified tenderers with good references, and the tenders were within the range of the expected budget for the project, for this portion of the project. So our recommendation is that we award the tender to the lowest compliant bidder, which is Coast Water Systems.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Are there any questions?
Move the
No
recommendation.
questions?
Second.
Recommendation moved, seconded, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? No one opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Moran, and all the best with that station. Building and Planning Department, we have monthly report of active land use applications.
receipt.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any questions? No. Thank you very much for putting all this together by your department, Ms. Jensen. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Archie, we get back to a bylaw from the CRD. This is the bylaw that had come before us on a prior occasion, and we in essence agreed to support it. Some communities took issue with certain of these sections, and they would not support it. It went as required by provincial legislation was optional, but it went to mediation. And at mediation, there was agreement that we can change it and tweak it on a number of issues. And those new issues that have changed are now before us. And I think it's important that the core of what we agreed to has not changed. And what we really asked tonight is, do we agree with these changes that followed mediation? And Ms. Jensen, we've got your report here, maybe at a very high level, just kind of give us what those changes are from our original support of this bylaw. And you have a little bit of an analysis there, and in particular you have Table A, I think, is where we might see it in synopsis form, correct?
Correct. I think I would point you to that table that's in the staff report, as well as one of the attachments, which was the summary of the regional growth strategy mediation outcomes. It really lists a total of just over 30 revisions that were proposed, and then the agreement as a result of those. So a number of the issues were very specific to the western communities, correcting some mapping errors or looking at water sources and so on. There were some other changes that were reflective of some wording, some tweaking with respect to food security or climate change, growth projections, and so on. So the table that's laid out in the staff report is just intended to give you an idea of the changes that were proposed that have been agreed to, how they impact Oak Bay, and specifically the policies and the objectives set out in our official community plan.
Okay, and are there any major impacts for Oak Bay or Oak Bay official community plan?
No, not for Oak Bay. Everything that was proposed is still in agreement with the policies that are already set.
Yeah. There was even one, I think, objection that talked about a list of 8 things, and they didn't like the order of the 8 things. They weren't in priority orders, but we just moved them up at the mediation, and everyone was happy.
I would move that council accept the revised RGS bylaw 4017.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. Question for Acting Director of Building and Planning. In your report dated February 2nd, is it on page 2, just above strategic impact is in the paragraph, it suggests that our OCP may require an update to the current OCP regional context statement with respect to food systems and climate action objectives. Maybe you just said that and I didn't hear it, but you could just clarify that, please.
Certainly, those are sections that are new to the regional growth strategy. The community plan is required to have a regional context statement that addresses how our community plan, how our policies match with what's proposed in the growth strategy. So we'll need to update our statement to address those 2 pieces.
Can I ask what that process would look like? And does the food system make reference to the one farm we have in our district, and the climate action relate to what, please?
Well, the process would be that within the next 2 years, we have to provide an updated context statement to the regional district. What we would do is take a look at our context statement and determine how the policies and objectives that we already have set out, we would incorporate that into the context statement and then provide that through council with council's approval of that amendment to our community plan, send that off to the regional district.
Final follow-up, Chair. I imagine 2 years from now might be about time for us to look at a re-look at our OCP soon, maybe next mandate. Do you anticipate that this redo of the context statement will be a separate process, or might be part of a possible redo of our OCP?
It would be a separate process.
All right, thank you.
And I think that farm doesn't produce food. But over the years, we have tweaked some bylaws to permit urban farming. And of course, we have the bees, we've had amendments and chickens. Now, any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question, which is to accept the revised bylaw, or Regional Growth Strategy bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? No one's opposed. Thank you very much. That was number 12. Number 13 is an application for a heritage revitalization agreement, and that's at 960 Fowl Bay. And I did see the applicant here. Hi, Mr. Dewhurst. We have a report from Ms. Jensen. Could you just give us, again, a very quick synopsis of where we're at here and what we should be doing tonight?
Certainly. So council considered this application for a heritage revitalization agreement and designation at their committee of the whole meeting in December of last year. The proposal presented at that time was to facilitate a 4-lot subdivision and heritage designation of the existing Samuel McClure home. Council gave us direction at that point in time to go ahead and prepare the two draft bylaws. Those are now presented for council consideration. Again, one for heritage designation and one for the heritage revitalization agreement. For council's information, a draft heritage alteration permit has also been attached as part of the staff report, and that permit application would be considered by council should they choose to move forward with readings and ultimate adoption of the bylaws. For this evening, you can give consideration to first and second readings of both those bylaws.
Thank you very much. So there's two bylaws, very similar to the other process we did earlier on beach, but we're just on an earlier stage. Let's see if there's any questions of Ms. Jensen, and to see if anyone has any questions for the applicant, although we have had it before us before. Okay, for Ms. Jensen, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the piece of correspondence that we received today. And in there, they have a question about that the home could be used as a B&B or an Airbnb. I know Airbnbs are illegal in Oak Bay, but as far as the B&B goes, can you just, for the public record, just I believe that we have to have a special zoning for a bed and breakfast. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So in this particular case, this particular property would not be zoned for a bed and breakfast?
No, it would not.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Jensen? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Murdoch, please.
I think I just wanted, I don't know if you have the answer tonight or not, but does this land qualify for the required payment of a more than 3 subdivision?
Yes, it would, and that would be something would be under discussion as part of the subdivision application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions for the applicant who is here? I see no questions for you, Mr. Dewhurst, so just hang tight. And then, let me just have a moment here. Should we, all right.
Move.
So we would then, the recommendation is here. I've just gotten the wrong page now, unfortunately, on my iPad, so I've got to go back and get the right button. There we go.
I could use your error.
Yeah, it certainly is. Sometimes my thumbs are bigger than the buttons, and that's the problem. I mean to hit one report, and I get another one up there, and I apologize for that. So the recommendation to give first and second reading.
So moved.
Okay.
For the Heritage Revitalization Agreement, first and second reading for the Heritage Designation Bylaw, and to set a public hearing for February 26th.
So all three, can we do them together? Yes, thank you very much. So all three recommendations are now on the floor. And that is to essentially, the public hearing will be on February 26th if this motion passes. Discussion? Seeing, oh,
I'll
Second.
I thought I heard a second, but maybe that was just your echo. Okay, so no discussion, all in favor? Opposed, not opposed. So anyone who's here on that particular issue and wants to speak to it can come back on the 26th. We'll hold a public hearing much like we did earlier this evening at 6 o'clock. And it'll be a very similar procedure. Okay, the Advisory Planning Commission, that's number 14. Their
Move receipt
minutes.
of the minutes.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That passes. Thank you. Correspondence. We have received, this has to do with 3065 Uplands.
Move receipt.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded in terms of receiving it. All in favor? Opposed? No one opposed. Thank you. New business and verbal reports. Is there any new business? That's fine. You can do it under new business.
Sorry, just wanted to bring to council's attention the notice of motion on secondary suite implementation in Oak Bay that you can file for your records that I hope to bring to council in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that'll be circulated if it hasn't already. Oh, I think it was circulated, was it? Yep, it was at your seats. Thank you. So that's just notice of motion.
A question of notice of, sorry, a point of order.
Yep.
The motion talks about bylaws as opposed to asking for the process of asking for a report from staff on the implementation of, for example. So isn't there a process where we're asking?
Yes, and
for
I think
certain-
that's what we're planning to go through if
reports.
this motion passes.
The normal process of where we change our,
If there's any,
Yes.
if there's any upgrade, change, deletions, additions to our priorities, staff weighs in. That's correct. Okay, that's the process that we'll get advised on the 26th if it passes, what the next steps are. Okay, and maybe we can even have, when it comes back, a copy of that agreed upon policy as part of the agenda package. That would be helpful. Just as a reminder, well, I know we have them all somewhere in our materials. All right. Any other new business? Another new business report in the CRD. I don't know if people want to hear about the CRD anymore, but come on now. The one thing that did happen that may have some impact is reestablishment of the Royal and McPherson Theatre Society Advisory Committee, which hadn't met in 7 years. That was reestablished, and membership will be drawn from the Finance Committee. I'm a member of Finance Committee, and I will be, if the board agrees tomorrow, I will be the member for Oak Bay, the representative for Oak Bay. And in essence, because we own McPherson, we pay into the society as a result of that. No, sorry, the Royal. Sorry, I meant Royal. We own the Royal with 2 other owners, but only Victoria owns the McPherson. So I think there's going to be some discussions as to the interest that others may have in getting ownership of that. And I will not make any commitments until we've started seeing what the agenda will be. So other than that, that's that. Thank you very much. I think I did circulate, and it's on the website also, at the Environmental Advisory Committee, which I'm also a member of, met, and we had, we renewed our, what used to be called Multi-Materials BC, now called Recycling BC, where in essence, we will continue in the CRD the recycling programs, run and kind of overseen and run by the CRD, and Multi-Materials, also known as Recycle BC, will pay for it. And there's some changes as a result of policy changes in China. We're affected by that. Our large, rigid plastic we can no longer be sent over, and will have to be, unless there's another use for it, will have to be put into the landfill. So that's a problem. But the good news is, on the other side, our paper can still continue to be exported because it's a high quality, free of contamination. So that's my report. Other verbal reports. Councillor Croft, please. Then Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you. An initiative of Oak Bay Tourism, the Oak Bay Beach Hotel, I'd like to bring to your attention. We just had 7 travel writers come in, and they belong to a particular chapter. And the tourism and the Oak Bay Beach Hotel are working hard to get more of these writers here to write about our community. And they create a little card, "Wish you were here," that all the travel writers were encouraged to send home. So I have copies of these if you ever want to send them home to your friends back east or wherever to say, "Wish you were here." I want to again mention the Prosperity Project. There are 10 finalists have been selected for 3 prizes of $15,000 apiece for the Smart Cities program, leading to hopefully a grant for the area of up to $10 million. On March 11th, there'll be a Dragon's Den program up at UVic, so you can see these all being presented. The CAOB is holding a Oak Bay Talks, Housing Affordability, part 1 of 2 this Saturday at the Windsor Park Pavilion. And there is a UVic new student residence projects open houses that are going to be published on our website. Unfortunately, none of those will be held in Oak Bay, so please look out for those and take them in.
Thank you very much, Councillor Croft. Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you. Just 2 quick updates. Heritage Conservation Area process. So we've met with the consultant. We're meeting weekly now. We have a draft timeline finalized. We expect to have 2 public input sessions over the next 6 to 8 weeks to bring forward ideas and have them brought back. So it's going to be fairly busy for the next couple of months as we go through that, but it's all hands on deck. Just want to remind people, if they're interested in doing any of the registration for programs at GBPL, those are now available from March through May. I had a question maybe at the end of this, Mayor, you could answer. Just curious about the RMTS Management Committee. How is that taking feedback from? There was a region-wide consultation process that looked at a whole bunch of the stuff in detail. Councillor Ney, Councillor Croft, and I attended different sessions of that. So is that information going back to that group? I just had a question for you on that. And the Heritage Commission Committee, we have our commission and foundation. You mentioned already the Heritage Week and the archives on February 20th, 10 to 3. Also, I guess finally, there's a Heritage Talk on March 7th, which I will be giving on my grandfather's little history of Oak Bay, called Nitwits, Touts, and Oak Bay Council. But I assure you, there's no mention of this council at all. It's all old.
Yeah, well, I'll be out to make sure you don't mention any of this.
No, it's all
under
all
those
stuff.
Categories, anyways.
So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Oh, Councillor Kirby, please.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the No Ivy League meets, the Friends of Uplands Park meets in Uplands Park, actually right now on the far side of the of Cattle Point, beyond the boat ramp. If you go right to the very edge of the property line, there's a section of ivy that is being removed by volunteers, so you can come weekly. It started on February 4th, but it carries on through the spring. And from 1 to 3 p.m. on Sundays, you can get a bit of exercise and fresh air, and there's great conversation, I assure you, and free advice on native plants and native species gardening.
Thank you very much. And to answer your question, Councillor Murdoch, the advisory group has not met, but any discussions, no doubt, will be informed by gathering of materials that have been done before, depending on what the issue is. And one suspects the issue might be that, as I mentioned, that McPherson Theatre should be more widely owned than it is. And we'll have a look at that. But it's advisory only, it's not a decision making.
Just
Councillor
a
Braithwaite,
quick
please.
reminder that the Monterey Centre's having their rummage sale on February 24th. So if you have things to drop off, you can drop off and go there and buy lots of stuff.
Thank you very much. All right. Now, where are we? Hang on. Now, okay, now we're on to resolutions, please. Item 17, that has to do with 3245 Beach. You may recall this was an extension of an existing building that's been considered. It is before us now, and we don't, under a new process, we don't lift or anything like that. We can go right into the motion being made.
Move approval of development variance permit for 3245 Beach Drive.
Second.
Are there any discussions here at council? No? Anyone wish to address us on that issue? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed? The next one is the one where we did receive a positive support, and that is at 3065 Uplands.
Move approval of the development variance permit at 3065 Uplands Road.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded.
Citing and design.
Is there anyone wishes to address us? Seeing none. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. The bylaws, we have first, second, third reading of the mayor's and councilors' annual indemnity bylaw. There appeared to be a technical error in the one that we passed. So there's no financial impact or change to the district as a result of this bylaw. It's really just a housekeeping oops kind of bylaw. So we can have first, second, third reading,
Move first
please?
reading.
No, do it all.
I think we do it all at once
Move
now.
first, second, and third reading.
Second.
Moved and second. A discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now,
Move adjourned.
just before we do that, just before we do the adjournment, this is the last meeting of Ms. Maura Jones has with us. And it is with mixed emotions, or some people call it a bittersweet moment, because regrettably, Ms. Jones, who has been our Deputy Director of Corporate Services for some time, will be leaving us. And we're sad to see you go. We'll miss you, Maura. I'm going to call you Maura from here on in. And you've made a tremendous contribution to our community, but also to our council. However, we do join and celebrate with you your happiness in returning to your home, Kootenays. In particular, where I used to live, just a stone's throw away in Nelson. So Stephen Orson and you will be moving there sometime later this month. Your husband taking a job there, and I know you grew up in the Kootenays and have a great love and continue to have family there. So, and for those of you who don't know, Maura's been here since 2011, was called a Deputy Municipal Clerk in those days, and has done a tremendous job leading the department with professionalism and enthusiasm and outstanding customer service. You know, I often see Maura speaking to residents at the counter, and then when the people turn around and kind of, I see their back to begin with, and they turn around. I've never seen anyone not smile walking away from that conversation. And it's a real tribute to your ability to communicate and your ability to understand what the problem is and hear and then deal with it in an effective way. It doesn't necessarily mean withdrawing tickets or anything like that, but sometimes explaining them, and people are very happy. So you have been the lead person, assisting council, and the committee of the whole, putting together agendas and meetings and actually setting them up. And if we can be referred to as cats here, trying to get us all into the same room at the same time sometime, no doubt has been a challenge, but you've been up to it with a sunny disposition, and we certainly appreciate that. And I know you've really assisted my role and anyone who's been either acting mayor or chair at the committee and developing these, I guess I should confess, little cheat sheets about the steps that need to be taken in every meeting to ensure we comply with our procedural bylaws and, as tonight, the provincial regulation that governs the meetings. And you've done it so well. And thanks for your advice. Very candid, and it's excellent. And I know the procedures can have a lot of pitfalls. We discovered some of them tonight, and which you steered us nicely through there without us tripping. So we wish you and Orson and Stephen all the best in the Kootenays, and I know you'll love Nelson. I did certainly when I lived there. It's a wonderful, wonderful town, and who knows, we might run into you there at UBCM if you get back into the local government stream. We wish you all the best in whatever you do. So all the best to you and your family. Thank you very much for a wonderful time. Now, hang on. What's the next step here, Marv? What do we do next? What do we do now? Come on now, help us out here.
The clerk thanks everyone for the kind remarks and for the support you've given, and I've truly been blessed under the oak leaf, as so many are here, and have really appreciated all the opportunities. Thank you, Your Worship,
Okay.
and to members of council.
Thank you. And what do we do now?
I move that Marlon not be allowed to leave. I think that's the...
Move adjournment.
Move adjournment. Good. Okay.
Second.
Just all in favor, opposed, not opposed. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, give me some of those.